Chapter 29. 'Tis a bird-like sensuousness that is all the little lady's own, Terence was saying, as he helped himself to a cocktail from the tray Aha was passing around. It was the hour before dinner, and Graham, Leo and Terence McFane had chanced together in the stag room. "No, Leo," the Irishman warned the young poet. "Let the one suffice you, your cheeks are warm with it. A second one and you'll conflagrate. 'Tis no right you have to be mixing beauty and strong drink in that lad's head of yours. Leave the drink to your elders. There is such a thing as consanguinity for drink, you have it not. As for me." He emptied the glass and paused to turn the cocktail reminiscently on his tongue. "'Tis women's drink," he shook his head in condemnation. "It likes me not, it bites me not, and devil a bit of a taste is there to it. Aha, my boy," he called to the Chinese, "mix me a highball in a long, long glass, a stiff one." He held up 4 fingers horizontally to indicate the measure of liquor he would have in the glass, and, to Aha's query as to what kind of whiskey, answered, "Scotch or Irish, bourbon or rye, whichever comes nearest to hand." Graham shook his head to the Chinese and laughed to the Irishman. "You'll never drink me down, Terence. I've not forgotten what you did to O'Hay." "'Twas an accident, I would have you think," was the reply. "They say, when a man's not feeling any too fit, a bit of drink will hit him like a club." "And you," Graham questioned. "Have never been hit by a club. I am a man of singularly few experiences." "But Terence, you were saying, about Mrs. Forrest?" Leo begged. "It sounded as if it were going to be nice." "As if it could be otherwise," Terence censured. "But as I was saying, 'tis a bird-like sensuousness, not the little hoppy wagtail kind, nor yet the sleek and solemn dove, but a merry sort of bird, like the wild canaries you see bathing in the fountains, always twittering and singing, flinging the water in the sun, and glowing the golden hearts of them on their happy breasts. 'Tis like that the little lady is. I have observed her much. Everything on the earth and under the earth, and in the sky contributes to the passion of her days the untoward purple of the ground myrtle when it has no right to aught more than pale lavender. A single red rose tossing in the bathing wind. One perfect duchess rose bursting from its bush into the sunshine, as she said to me, pink as the dawn, Terence, and shaped like a kiss. 'Tis all one with her, the princess's silver nay, the sheep bells of a frosty morn, the pretty Angora goats making silky pictures on the hillside all day long, the drifts of purple lupins along the fences, the long hot grass on slope and roadside, the summer-burnt hills tawny as crouching lions, and even have I seen the sheer sensuous pleasure of the little lady with bathing her arms and neck in the blessed sun." "She is the soul of beauty," Leo murmured. "One understands how men can die for women such as she." "And how men can live for them and love them, the lovely things," Terence added. "Listen, Mr. Graham, and I'll tell you a secret. We philosophers of the Madrono Grove, we wrecks and wastages of life here in the quiet backwater and easement of Dick's munificence, are a brotherhood of lovers. And the lady of our hearts is all the one, the little lady. We, who merely talk and dream our days away, and who would lift never a hand for God, or country, or the devil, are pledged knights of the little lady." "We would die for her," Leo affirmed, slowly nodding his head. "Nay, lad, we would live for her and fight for her. Dying is that easy." Graham missed nothing of it. The boy did not understand, but in the blue eyes of the Celt, peering from under the mop of iron-gray hair, there was no mistaking the knowledge of the situation. Voices of men were heard coming down the stairs, and, as Martinez and Darheil entered, Terence was saying, "'Tis fine whether they say they're having down at Catalina now, and I hear the tunny fish are biting splendid." Aha served cocktails around, and was kept busy, for Hancock and Frolig followed along. Terence impartially drank stiff highballs of whatever liquor the immobile-faced Chinese elected to serve him, and discoursed fatherly to Leo on the iniquities and abominations of the flowing bowl. Omai entered, a folded note in his hand, and looked about in doubt as to whom to give it. "Hither, wing-heeled celestial," Terence waved him up. "'Tis a petition, couched in very proper terms," Terence explained, after a glance at its contents. "And Ernestine and Lute have arrived, for 'tis they that petition. Listen," and he read, "Oh, noble and glorious stags, too poor and lowly meek-eyed does, wandering lonely in the forest, do humbly entreat admission for the brief time before dinner to the stamping ground of the herd." "The metaphor is mixed," said Terence. "Yet have they acted well. 'Tis the rule Dick's ruland, a good rule it is. No petticoats in the stag room save by the stag's unanimous consent. Is the herd ready for the question? All those in favor will say, aye. Contrary-minded, the ayes have it. Oh my, fleet with thy heels and bring in the ladies. With sandals beaten from the crowns of kings, Leo added, murmuring the words reverently, loving them with his lips as his lips formed them and uttered them. Shall he tread down the altars of their night? Terence completed the passage. The man who wrote that is a great man. He is Leo's friend and Dick's friend, and proud am I that he is my friend. And that other line, Leo said. From the same sonnet, he explained to Graham. Listen to the sound of it. To hear what song the star of morning sings, oh, listen, the boy went on, his voice hushed low with beauty love for the words. With perished beauty in his hands as clay shall he restore futurity its dream. He broke off as Paula's sisters entered, and rose shyly to greet them. Dinner that night was as any dinner at which the Madrono sages were present. Dick was as robustly controversial as usual, locking horns with Aaron Hancock on Bergson, attacking the latter's metaphysics in sharp, realistic fashion. Your Bergson is a charlatan philosopher, Aaron, Dick concluded. He has the same old medicine man's bag of metaphysical tricks, all decked out and frilled with the latest ascertained facts of science. "'Tis true," Terence agreed. "Bergson is a charlatan thinker. 'Tis why he is so popular." "I deny," Hancock broke in. "Wait a wee, Aaron. 'Tis a thought I have glimmered. Let me catch it before it flutters away into the azure." Dick's caught Bergson with the goods on him, filched straight from the treasure house of science. His very cocksureness is filched from Darwin's morality of strength based on the survival of the fittest. And what did Bergson do with it? Touched it up with a bit of James' pragmatism, rosied it over with the eternal hope in man's breast that he will live again, and made it all a-shine with Nietzsche's, nothing succeeds like excess. "Wilda's, you mean," corrected Ernestine. "Heaven knows I should have filched it for myself had you not been present," Terence sighed, with a bow to her. "Some day the antiquarians will decide the authorship. Personally, I would say it smacked of Methuselah, but as I was saying, before I was delightfully interrupted." Who more cocksure than Dick? Aaron was challenging a little later, while Paula glanced significantly to Graham. "I was looking at the herd of yearling stallions but yesterday," Terence replied, "and with the picture of the splendid beasties still in my eyes I'll ask, and who more delivers the goods?" "But Hancock's objection is solid," Martinez ventured. "It would be a mean and profitless world without mystery. Dick sees no mystery." "There you wrong him," Terence defended. "I know him well. Dick recognizes mystery, but not of the nursery child variety. No cock and bull stories for him, such as you romanticists luxuriate in." "Terence gets me," Dick nodded. "The world will always be mystery. To me, man's consciousness is no greater mystery than the reaction of the gases that make a simple drop of water. Grant that mystery, and all the more complicated phenomena cease to be mysteries. That simple chemical reaction is like one of the axioms on which the edifice of geometry is reared. Matter and force are the everlasting mysteries, manifesting themselves in the twin mysteries of space and time. The manifestations are not mysteries only, the stuff of the manifestations, matter and force, and the theater of the manifestations, space and time." Dick ceased and idly watched the expressionless ah-ha and ah-me who chanced at the moment to be serving opposite him. Their faces did not talk, was his thought, although 10-1 was a fair bet that they were informed with the same knowledge that had perturbed Oh dear. "And there you are," Terence was triumphing. "'Tis the perfect joy of him never up in the air with dizzy heels. Flat on the good ground he stands, foursquare to fact and law, set against all airy fancies and bubbly speculations." And as at table, so afterward that evening no one could have guessed from Dick that all was not well with him. He seemed bent on celebrating Lute's and Ernestine's return, refused to tolerate the heavy talk of the philosophers, and bubbled over with pranks and tricks. Paula yielded to the contagion, and aided and abetted him in his practical jokes which none escaped. Choicest among these was the kiss of welcome. No man escaped it. To Graham was accorded the honor of receiving it first so that he might witness the discomfiture of the others, who, one by one, were ushered in by Dick from the patio. Hancock, Dick's arm guiding him, came down the room to confront Paula and her sisters standing in a row on 3 chairs in the middle of the floor. He scanned them suspiciously and insisted upon walking around behind them. But there seemed nothing unusual about them, save that each wore a man's felt hat. "Looks good to me," Hancock announced, as he stood on the floor before them and looked up at them. "And it is good," Dick assured him. "As representing the ranch in its fairest aspects, they are to administer the kiss of welcome. Make your choice, Aaron." Aaron, with a quick whirl to catch some possible lurking disaster at his back, demanded, "They are all 3 to kiss me." "No, make your choice which is to give you the kiss." "The 2 I do not choose will not feel that I have discriminated against them," Aaron insisted. Whiskers' no objection was his next query. "Not in the way at all," Lute told him. "I have always wondered what it would be like to kiss Black Whiskers." "Here's where all the philosophers get kissed tonight, so hurry up," Ernestine said. "The others are waiting. I, too, have yet to be kissed by an alfalfa field." "Whom do you choose?" Dick urged. As if, after that, there were any choice about it, Hancock returned jauntily. "I kiss my lady the little lady." As he put up his lips, Paula bent her head forward, and nicely directed, from the indented crown of her hat, canted a glassful of water into his face. When Leo's turn came, he bravely made his choice of Paula, and nearly spoiled the show by reverently bending and kissing the hem of her gown. "It will never do," Ernestine told him. "It must be a real kiss. Put up your lips to be kissed." "Let the lass be first and kiss me, Leo," Lute begged, to save him from his embarrassment. He looked his gratitude, put up his lips, but without enough tilt of his head, so that he received the water from Lute's hat down the back of his neck. "All 3 shall kiss me, and thus shall paradise be thrice multiplied," was Terrence's way out of the difficulty, and simultaneously he received 3 crowns of water for his gallantry. Dick's boisterousness waxed apace. His was the most carefree seeming in the world, as he measured Froelich and Martinez against the door to settle the dispute that had arisen as to whether Froelich or Martinez was the taller. Knees straight and together, heads back, Dick commanded. And as their heads touched the wood, from the other side came a rousing thump that jarred them. The door swung open, revealing Ernestine with a padded gong stick in either hand. Dick, a high-heeled satin slipper in his hand, was under a sheet with Terrence, teaching him, "Brother Bob, I'm bobbed," to the uproarious joy of the others, when the Masons and Watsons and all their Wickenburg following entered upon the scene. Whereupon Dick insisted that the young men of their party receive the kiss of welcome. Nor did he miss, in the hubbub of a dozen persons meeting as many more, Lottie Masons. "Oh, good evening, Mr. Graham. I thought you had gone." And Dick, in the midst of the confusion of settling such an influx of guests, still maintaining his exuberant jolly pose, waited for that sharp scrutiny that women have only for women. Not many moments later, he saw Lottie Mason steal such a look, keen with speculation, at Paula as she chanced face to face with Graham, saying something to him. Not yet was Dick's conclusion. Lottie did not know. But suspicion was rife, and nothing, he was certain, under the circumstances, would gladden her woman's heart more than to discover the unimpeachable Paula as womanly weak as herself. Lottie Mason was a tall, striking brunette of 25, undeniably beautiful, and, as Dick had learned, undeniably daring. In the not remote past, attracted by her, and, it must be submitted, subtly invited by her, he had been guilty of a philandering that he had not allowed to go as far as her wishes. The thing had not been serious on his part, nor had he permitted it to become serious on her side. Nevertheless, sufficient flirtatious passages had taken place to impel him this night to look to her, rather than to the other Wickenburg women, for the first signals of suspicion. "Oh yes, he's a beautiful dancer," Dick, as he came up to them half an hour later, heard Lottie Mason telling little Miss Maxwell. "Isn't he, Dick?" she appealed to him, with innocent eyes of candor through which disguise he knew she was studying him. "Who, Graham, you must mean," he answered with untroubled directness. "He certainly is. What do you say we start dancing and let Miss Maxwell see? Though there's only one woman here who can give him full swing to show his paces." "Paula, of course," said Lottie. "Paula, of course? Why, you young chits don't know how to waltz. You never had a chance to learn." Lottie tossed her fine head. "Perhaps you learned a little before the new dancing came in," he amended. Anyway, I'll get Evan and Paula started, you take me on, and I'll wager we'll be the only couples on the floor. Half through the waltz, he broke it off with, let them have the floor to themselves, it's worth seeing. And glowing with appreciation, he stood and watched his wife and Graham finish the dance, while he knew that Lottie, beside him, stealing side glances at him, was having her suspicions allayed. The dancing became general, and the evening being warm, the big doors to the patio were thrown open. Now one couple, and now another, danced out and down the long arcades where the moonlight streamed, until it became the general thing. What a boy he is, Paula said to Graham, as they listened to Dick descanting to all and sundry on the virtues of his new night camera. You heard Aaron complaining at table and Terence explaining his sureness. Nothing terrible has ever happened to him in his life. He has never been overthrown. His sureness has always been vindicated. As Terence said, it has always delivered the goods. He does know, and yet he is so sure of himself, so sure of me. Graham taken away to dance with Miss Maxwell, Paula continued her train of thought to herself. Dick was not suffering so much after all, and she might have expected it. He was the cool head, the philosopher. He would take her loss with the same equanimity as he would take the loss of Mountain Lad, as he had taken the death of Jeremy Braxton and the flooding of the Harvest Mines. It was difficult, she smiled to herself, aflame as she was toward Graham, to be married to a philosopher who would not lift a hand to hold her. And it came to her afresh that one phase of Graham's charm for her was his humanness, his flamingness. They met on common ground. At any rate, even in the heyday of their coming together in Paris, Dick had not so inflamed her. A wonderful lover he had been, too, with his gift of speech and lover's phrases, with his love chants that had so delighted her. But somehow it was different from this what she felt for Graham and what Graham must feel for her. Besides, she had been most young in experience of love and lovers in that long ago when Dick had burst so magnificently upon her. And so thinking, she hardened toward him and recklessly permitted herself to flame toward Graham. The crowd, the gaiety, the excitement, the closeness and tenderness of contact in the dancing, the summer warmth of the evening, the streaming moonlight, and the night scents of flowers all fanned her ardency, and she looked forward eagerly to the at least one more dance she might dare with Graham. No flashlight is necessary, Dick was explaining. It's a German invention. Half-a-minute exposure under the ordinary lighting is sufficient, and the best of it is that the plate can be immediately developed just like an ordinary blueprint. Of course, the drawback is one cannot print from the plate. But if it's good, an ordinary plate can be copied from it from which prints can be made, Ernestine amplified. She knew the huge, 20-foot, spring snake coiled inside the camera and ready to leap out like a jack-in-the-box when Dick squeezed the bulb. And there were others who knew and who urged Dick to get the camera and make an exposure. He was gone longer than he expected, for Bonbright had left on his desk several telegrams concerning the Mexican situation that needed immediate replies. Trick camera in hand, Dick returned by a short cut across the house and patio. The dancing couples were ebbing down the arcade and disappearing into the hall, and he leaned against a pillar and watched them go by. Last of all came Paula and Evan, passing so close that he could have reached out and touched them. But though the moon shone full on him, they did not see him. They saw only each other in the tender sport of gazing. The last preceding couple was already inside when the music ceased. Graham and Paula paused, and he was for giving her his arm and leading her inside, but she clung to him in sudden impulse. Manlike, cautious, he slightly resisted for a moment, but with one arm around his neck she drew his head willingly down to the kiss. It was a flash of quick passion. The next instant, Paula on his arm, they were passing in and Paula's laugh was ringing merrily and naturally. Dick clutched at the pillar and eased himself down abruptly until he sat flat on the pavement. Accompanying violent suffocation, or causing it, his heart seemed rising in his chest. He panted for air. The cursed thing rose and choked and stifled him until, in the grim turn his fancy took, it seemed to him that he chewed it between his teeth and gulped it back and down his throat along with the reviving air. He felt chilled and was aware that he was wet with sudden sweat. And who ever heard of heart disease in the forests? He muttered, as, still sitting, leaning against the pillar for support, he mopped his face dry. His hand was shaking, and he felt a slight nausea from an internal quivering that still persisted. It was not as if Graham had kissed her, he pondered. It was Paula who had kissed Graham. That was love and passion. He had seen it, and as it burned again before his eyes, he felt his heart surge, and the premonitory sensation of suffocation seized him. With a sharp effort of will, he controlled himself and got to his feet. "By God, it came up in my mouth and I chewed it," he muttered. "I chewed it." Returning across the patio by the roundabout way, he entered the lighted room jauntily enough, camera in hand, and unprepared for the reception he received. "Seen a ghost," Luke greeted. "Are you sick? What's the matter?" were other questions. "What is the matter?" he countered. "Your face, the look of it," Ernestine said. "Something has happened, what is it?" And while he oriented himself, he did not fail to note Lottie Mason's quick glance at the faces of Graham and Paula, nor to note that Ernestine had observed Lottie's glance and followed it up for herself. "Yes," he lied. "Bad news, just got the word. Jeremy Braxton is dead, murdered. The Mexicans got him while he was trying to escape into Arizona." "Old Jeremy, God love him for the fine man he was," Terrence said, tucking his arm in Dick's. "Come on, old man, tease a stiffener you're wanting, and I'm the lad to lead you to it." "Oh, I'm all right," Dick smiled, shaking his shoulders and squaring himself as if gathering himself together. "It did hit me hard for the moment. I hadn't a doubt in the world but Jeremy would make it out all right, but they got him and 2 engineers with him. They put up a devil of a fight first. They got under a cliff and stood off a mob of 1,000 for a day and night, and then the Mexicans tossed dynamite down from above. Oh, well, all flesh is grass, and there is no grass of yesteryear." "Terrence, your suggestion is a good one. Lead on." After a few steps, he turned his head over his shoulder and called back, "Now this isn't to stop the fun. I'll be right back to take that photograph. You arrange the group, Ernestine, and be sure to have them under the strongest light." Terrence pressed open the concealed buffet at the far end of the room and set out the glasses, while Dick turned on a wall light and studied his face in the small mirror inside the buffet door. "It's all right now, quite natural," he announced. "'Twas only a passing shade," Terrence agreed, pouring the whiskey. "And man has well the right to take it hard the going of old friends." They toasted and drank silently. "Another one," Dick said, extending his glass. "Say when," said the Irishman, and with imperturbable eyes he watched the rising tide of liquor in the glass. Dick waited till it was half full. Again they toasted and drank silently, eyes to eyes, and Dick was grateful for the offer of all his heart that he read in Terrence's eyes. Back in the middle of the hall, Ernestine was gaily grouping the victims, and privily from the faces of Lottie, Paula, and Graham, trying to learn more of the something untoward that she sensed. Why had Lottie looked so immediately and searchingly at Graham and Paula? She asked herself, and something was wrong with Paula now. She was worried, disturbed, and not in the way to be expected from the announcement of Jeremy Braxton's death. From Graham, Ernestine could glean nothing. He was quite his ordinary self, his facetiousness the cause of much laughter to Miss Maxwell and Mrs. Watson. Paula was disturbed. What had happened? Why had Dick lied? He had known of Jeremy's death for 2 days, and she had never known anybody's death so to affect him. She wondered if he had been drinking unduly. In the course of their married life, she had seen him several times in liquor. He carried it well, the only noticeable effects being a flush in his eyes and a loosening of his tongue to whimsical fancies and extemporized chants. Had he, in his trouble, been drinking with the iron-headed Terrence down in the stag room? She had found them all assembled there just before dinner. The real cause for Dick's strangeness never crossed her mind, if for no other reason than that he was not given to spying. He came back, laughing heartily at a joke of Terrence's, and beckoned Graham to join them while Terrence repeated it. And when the 3 had had their laugh, he prepared to take the picture. The burst of the huge snake from the camera and the genuine screams of the startled women served to dispel the gloom that threatened, and next Dick was arranging a tournament of peanut carrying. From chair to chair, placed a dozen yards apart, the feat was with a table knife to carry the most peanuts in 5 minutes. After the preliminary tryout, Dick chose Paula for his partner and challenged the world, Wickenburg and the Madrono Grove included. Many boxes of candy were wagered, and in the end he and Paula won out against Graham and Ernestine, who had proved the next best couple. Demands for a speech changed to clamor for a peanut song. Dick complied, beating the accent, Indian fashion, with stiff-legged hops and hand slaps on thighs. "I am Dick Forrest, son of Richard the Lucky, son of Jonathan the Puritan, son of John who was a sea rover, as his father Albert before him, who was the son of Mortimer, a pirate who was hanged in chains and died without issue. I am the last of the forests, but first of the peanut carriers. Neither Nimrod nor Sando has anything on me. I carry the peanuts on a knife, a silver knife. The peanuts are animated by the devil. I carry the peanuts with grace and celerity and in quantity. The peanut never sprouted that can best me. The peanuts roll, the peanuts roll. Like Atlas who holds the world, I never let them fall. Not everyone can carry peanuts. I am God-gifted. I am master of the art. It is a fine art. The peanuts roll, and I carry them on forever. Aaron is a philosopher. He cannot carry peanuts. Ernestine is a blonde. She cannot carry peanuts. Evan is a sportsman. He drops peanuts. Paula is my partner. She fumbles peanuts. Only I, by the grace of God and my own cleverness, carry peanuts. When anybody has had enough of my song, throw something at me. I am proud. I am tireless. I can sing on forever. I shall sing on forever. Here beginneth the second canto. When I die, bury me in a peanut patch, while I live. The expected avalanche of cushions quenched his song, but not his ebullient spirits. For he was soon in a corner with Lottie Mason, and Paula concocting a conspiracy against Terence. And so the evening continued to be danced and joked and played away. At midnight, supper was served, and not till 2 in the morning were the Wickenburgers ready to depart. While they were getting on their wraps, Paula was proposing for the following afternoon a trip down to the Sacramento River to look over Dick's experiment in rice raising. I had something else in view, he told her. You know the mountain pasture above Sycamore Creek. 3 yearlings have been killed there in the last 10 days. Mountain lions, Paula cried. 2 at least strayed in from the north, he explained to Graham. They sometimes do that. We got 3 5 years ago, Moss, and Hartley will be there with the dogs waiting. They've located 2 of the beasts. What do you say all of you join me? We can leave right after lunch. Let me have Molly, Lute asked. And you can ride Altadena, Paula told Ernestine. Quickly the mounts were decided upon, Frolig and Martinez agreeing to go, but promising neither to shoot well nor ride well. All went out to see the Wickenburgers off, and, after the machines were gone, lingered to make arrangements for the hunting. Good night, everybody, Dick said, as they started to move inside. I'm going to take a look at Alden Bessie before I turn in. Hennessy is sitting up with her. Remember, you girls, come to lunch in your riding togs and curses on the head of whoever's late. The ancient dam of the Fotherington Princess was in a serious way, but Dick would not have made the visit at such an hour, save that he wanted to be by himself, and that he could not nerve himself for a chance moment alone with Paula so soon after what he had overseen in the patio. Light steps in the gravel made him turn his head. Ernestine caught up with him and took his arm. Poor old Alden Bessie, she explained. I thought I'd go along. Dick, still acting up to his knight's role, recalled to her various funny incidents of the evening, and laughed and chuckled with reminiscent glee. Dick, she said in the first pause, you are in trouble. She could feel him stiffen and hurried on. What can I do? You know you can depend on me. Tell me. Yes, I'll tell you, he answered. Just one thing. She pressed his arm gratefully. I'll have a telegram sent you tomorrow. It will be urgent enough, though not too serious. You will just bundle up and depart with Lute. Is that all? She faltered. It will be a great favor. You won't talk with me, she protested, quivering under the rebuff. I'll have the telegram come so as to rout you out of bed, and now never mind Alden Bessie. You run along in. Good night. He kissed her, gently thrust her toward the house, and went on his way. Chapter 30. On the way back from the sick mare, Dick paused once to listen to the restless stamp of Mountain Lad and his fellows in the stallion barn. In the quiet air, from somewhere up the hills, came the ringing of a single bell from some grazing animal. A catspaw of breeze fanned him with sudden balmy warmth. All the night was balmy with the faint and almost aromatic scent of ripening grain and drying grass. The stallion stamped again, and Dick, with a deep breath and realization that never had he more loved it all, looked up and circled the skyline where the crests of the mountains blotted the field of stars. No, Cato, he mused aloud. One cannot agree with you. Man does not depart from life as from an inn. He departs as from a dwelling, the one dwelling he will ever know. He departs nowhere. It is good night, for him the noiseless one and the dark. He made as if to start, but once again the stamp of the stallions held him, and the hillside bell rang out. He drew a deep inhalation through his nostrils of the air of balm, and loved it, and loved the fair land of his devising. I looked into time and saw none of me there, he quoted, then capped it, smiling with a second quotation. She gat me 9 great sons, the other 9 were daughters. Back at the house, he did not immediately go in, but stood a space gazing at the far-flung lines of it. Nor inside did he immediately go to his own quarters. Instead, he wandered through the silent rooms, across the patios, and along the dim-lit halls. His frame of mind was as of one about to depart on a journey. He pressed on the lights in Paula's fairy patio, and, sitting in an austere Roman seat of marble, smoked a cigarette quite through while he made his plans. Oh, he would do it nicely enough. He could pull off a hunting accident that would fool the world. Trust him not to bungle it. Next day would be the day, in the woods above Sycamore Creek. Grandfather Jonathan Forrest, the straight-laced Puritan, had died of a hunting accident. For the first time, Dick doubted that accident. Well, if it hadn't been an accident, the old fellow had done it well. It had never been hinted in the family that it was aught but an accident. His hand on the button to turn off the lights, Dick delayed a moment for a last look at the marble babies that played in the fountain and among the roses. "So long, younglings," he called softly to them. "You're the nearest I ever came to it." From his sleeping porch, he looked across the big patio to Paula's porch. There was no light. The chance was she slept. On the edge of the bed, he found himself with one shoe unlaced and, smiling at his absentness, relaced it. What need was there for him to sleep? It was already 4 in the morning. He would at least watch his last sunrise. Last things were coming fast. Already had he not dressed for the last time, and the bath of the previous morning would be his last. Mere water could not stay the corruption of death. He would have to shave, however, a last vanity, for the hair did continue to grow for a time on dead men's faces. He brought a copy of his will from the wall safe to his desk and read it carefully. Several minor codicils suggested themselves, and he wrote them out in longhand, predating them 6 months as a precaution. The last was the endowment of the sages of the Madrono Grove with a fellowship of 7. He ran through his life insurance policies, verifying the permitted suicide clause in each one, signed the tray of letters that had waited his signature since the previous morning, and dictated a letter into the phonograph to the publisher of his books. His desk cleaned, he scrawled a quick summary of income and expense, with all earnings from the harvest mines deducted. He transposed the summary into a second summary, increasing the expense margins and cutting down the income items to an absurdist least possible. Still, the result was satisfactory. He tore up the sheets of figures and wrote out a program for the future handling of the harvest situation. He did it sketchily, with casual tentativeness, so that when it was found among the papers, there would be no suspicions. In the same fashion, he worked out a line breeding program for the shires and an inbreeding table, up and down, for Mountain Lad and the Fotherington Princess and certain selected individuals of their progeny. When Omai came in with coffee at 6, Dick was on his last paragraph of his scheme for rice growing. "Although the Italian rice may be worth experimenting with for quick maturity," he wrote, "I shall for a time confine the main plantings in equal proportions to Modi, Ioko, and the water ribune. Thus, with different times of maturing, the same crews and the same machinery, with the same overhead, can work a larger acreage than if only one variety is planted." Omai served the coffee at his desk, and made no sign even after a glance to the porch at the bed, which had not been slept, in all of which control Dick permitted himself privily to admire. At 6:30 the telephone rang and he heard Hennessy's tired voice. "I knew you'd be up and glad to know Alden Bessie's pulled through. It was a squeak, though, and now it's me for the hay." When Dick had shaved, he looked at the shower, hesitated a moment, then his face set stubbornly. "I'm darned if I will," was his thought, a sheer waste of time. He did, however, change his shoes to a pair of heavy, high-laced ones fit for the roughness of hunting. He was at his desk again, looking over the notes in his scribble pads for the morning's work, when Paula entered. She did not call her "Good morning, merry gentleman," but came quite close to him before she greeted him softly with, "The acorn planter, ever tireless, never weary Red Cloud." He noted the violet-blue shadows under her eyes as he arose without offering to touch her. Nor did she offer invitation. "A white night?" he asked as he placed a chair. "A white night," she answered wearily. "Not a second's sleep, though I tried so hard." Both were reluctant of speech, and they labored under a mutual inability to draw their eyes away from each other. You don't look any too fit yourself," she said. "Yes, my face," he nodded. "I was looking at it while I shaved. The expression won't come off." "Something happened to you last night?" she probed, and he could not fail to see the same compassion in her eyes that he had seen in Oh Dear's. "Everybody remarked your expression. What was it?" He shrugged his shoulders. "It has been coming on for some time," he evaded, remembering that the first hint of it had been given him by Paula's portrait of him. "You've noticed it?" he inquired casually. She nodded, then was struck by a sudden thought. He saw the idea leap to life ere her words uttered it. "Dick, you haven't an affair." It was a way out. It would straighten all the tangle, and hope was in her voice and in her face. He smiled, shook his head slowly, and watched her disappointment. "I take it back," he said. "I have an affair." "Of the heart." She was eager as he answered, "Of the heart." But she was not prepared for what came next. He abruptly drew his chair close, till his knees touched hers, and, leaning forward, quickly but gently prisoned her hands in his resting on her knees. "Don't be alarmed, little bird woman," he quieted her. "I shall not kiss you. It is a long time since I have. I want to tell you about that affair. But first I want to tell you how proud I am proud of myself. I am proud that I am a lover. At my age, a lover. It is unbelievable and it is wonderful, and such a lover. Such a curious, unusual, and quite altogether remarkable lover. In fact, I have laughed all the books and all biology in the face. I am a monogamist. I love the woman, the one woman. After a dozen years of possession, I love her quite madly, oh, so sweetly madly." Her hands communicated her disappointment to him, making a slight, impulsive flutter to escape, but he held them more firmly. "I know her every weakness, and, weakness and strength and all, I love her as madly as I loved her at the first, in those mad moments when I first held her in my arms." Her hands were mutinous of the restraint he put upon them, and unconsciously she was beginning to pull and tug to be away from him. Also, there was fear in her eyes. He knew her fastidiousness, and he guessed, with the other man's lips recent on hers, that she feared a more ardent expression on his part. "And please, please be not frightened, timid, sweet, beautiful, proud little bird woman. See, I release you. Know that I love you most dearly, and that I am considering you as well as myself, and before myself all the while." He drew his chair away from her, leaned back, and saw confidence grow in her eyes. "I shall tell you all my heart," he continued, "and I shall want you to tell me all your heart." "This love for me is something new?" she asked. "A recrudescence?" "Yes, a recrudescence and no." "I thought that for a long time I had been a habit to you," she said. "But I was loving you all the time." "Not madly." "No," he acknowledged. "But with certainty, I was so sure of you, of myself. It was to me all a permanent and forever established thing. I plead guilty. But when that permanency was shaken, all my love for you fired up. It was there all the time, a steady, long-married flame." "But about me," she demanded. "That is what we are coming to. I know your worry right now, and of a minute ago. You are so intrinsically honest, so intrinsically true, that the thought of sharing two men is abhorrent to you. I have not misread you. It is a long time since you have permitted me any love touch." He shrugged his shoulders, "and an equally long time since I offered you a love touch." "Then you have known from the first?" she asked quickly. He nodded. "Possibly," he added, with an air of judicious weighing. "I sensed it coming before even you knew it. But we will not go into that or other things." "You have seen?" she attempted to ask, stung almost to shame at thought of her husband having witnessed any caress of hers and Graham's. "We will not demean ourselves with details, Paula. Besides, there was and is nothing wrong about any of it. Also, it was not necessary for me to see anything. I have my memories of when I, too, kissed stolen kisses in the pause of the seconds between the frank, outspoken good nights. When all the signs of ripeness are visible, the love shades and love notes that cannot be hidden, the unconscious caress of the eyes in a fleeting glance, the involuntary softening of voices, the cuckoo sob and the throat why, the night parting kiss does not need to be seen. It has to be. Still further, oh my woman, know that I justify you in everything. It was not ever, much, she faltered. I should have been surprised if it had been. It couldn't have been you. As it is, I have been surprised. After our dozen years, it was unexpected. Dick, she interrupted him, leaning toward him and searching him. She paused to frame her thought and then went on with directness. In our dozen years, will you say it has never been any more with you? I have told you that I justify you in everything, he softened his reply. But you have not answered my question, she insisted. Oh, I do not mean mere flirtatious passages, bits of primrose philandering. I mean unfaithfulness, and I mean it technically. In the past you have. In the past, he answered, not much and not for a long, long time. I often wondered, she mused. And I have told you I justify you in everything, he reiterated. And now you know where lies the justification. Then by the same token I had a similar right, she said. Though I haven't, Dick, I haven't, she hastened to add. Well, anyway, you always did preach the single standard. Alas, not any longer, he smiled. One's imagination will conjure, and in the past few weeks I've been forced to change my mind. You mean that you demand I must be faithful? He nodded and said, so long as you live with me. But where's the equity? There isn't any equity, he shook his head. Oh, I know it seems a preposterous change of view, but at this late day I have made the discovery of the ancient truth that women are different from men. All I have learned of book and theory goes glimmering before the everlasting fact that the women are the mothers of our children. I still had my hopes of children with you, you see, but that's all over and done with. The question now is, what's in your heart? I have told you mine. And afterward, we can determine what is to be done. Oh, Dick, she breathed after silence had grown painful, I do love you, I shall always love you, you are my red cloud. Why, do you know, only yesterday, out on your sleeping porch, I turned my face to the wall. It was terrible. It didn't seem right. I turned it out again, oh so quickly. He lighted a cigarette and waited. But you have not told me what is in your heart, all of it, he chided finally. I do love you, she repeated. And Evan. That is different. It is horrible to have to talk this way to you. Besides, I don't know. I can't make up my mind what is in my heart. Love or amorous adventure, it must be one or the other. She shook her head. Can't you understand? She asked. That I don't understand? You see, I am a woman, I have never sown any wild oats, and now that all this has happened, I don't know what to make of it. Shaw and the rest must be right. Women are hunting animals. You're both big game, I can't help it. It is a challenge to me, and I find I am a puzzle to myself. All my concepts have been toppled over by my conduct. I want you, I want Evan, I want both of you. It is not amorous adventure, oh believe me. And if by any chance it is, and I do not know it, no, it isn't, I know it isn't. Then it is love. But I do love you, Red Cloud. And you say you love him, you can't love both of us. But I can, I do love both of you, oh I am straight. I shall be straight. I must work this out. I thought you might help me. That is why I came to you this morning. There must be some solution. She looked at him appealingly as he answered. It is one or the other, Evan or me. I cannot imagine any other solution. That's what he says, but I can't bring myself to it. He was for coming straight to you. I would not permit him. He has wanted to go, but I held him here, hard as it was on both of you, in order to have you together, to compare you two, to weigh you in my heart. And I get nowhere. I want you both. I can't give either of you up. Unfortunately, as you see, Dick began, a slight twinkle in his eyes. While you may be polyandrously inclined, we stupid male men cannot reconcile ourselves to such a situation. Don't be cruel, Dick, she protested. Forgive me, it was not so meant. It was out of my own hurt and effort to bear it with philosophical complacence. I have told him that he was the only man I had ever met who is as great as my husband, and that my husband is greater. That was loyalty to me, yes, and loyalty to yourself, Dick explained. You were mine until I ceased being the greatest man in the world. He then became the greatest man in the world. She shook her head. Let me try to solve it for you, he continued. You don't know your mind, your desire. You can't decide between us because you equally want us both. Yes, she whispered. only rather differently want you both. Then the thing is settled, he concluded shortly. What do you mean? This, Paula, I lose. Graham is the winner, don't you see? Here am I, even with him, even and no more, while my advantage over him is our dozen years together, the dozen years of past love, the ties and bonds of heart and memory. Heavens! If all this weight were thrown in the balance on Evan's side, you wouldn't hesitate an instant in your decision. It is the first time you have ever been bowled over in your life, and the experience, coming so late, makes it hard for you to realize. But Dick, you bowled me over. He shook his head. I have always liked to think so, and sometimes I have believed but never really. I never took you off your feet, not even in the very beginning, whirlwind as the affair was. You may have been glamored, you were never mad as I was mad, never swept as I was swept. I loved you first. And you were a royal lover. I loved you first, Paula, and though you did respond, it was not in the same way. I never took you off your feet. It seems pretty clear that Evan has. I wish I could be sure, she mused. I have a feeling of being bowled over, and yet I hesitate. The two are not compatible. Perhaps I never shall be bowled over by any man, and you don't seem to help me in the least. You and you alone can solve it, Paula, he said gravely. But if you would help, if you would try such a little to hold me, she persisted. But I am helpless. My hands are tied. I can't put an arm to hold you, you can't share too. You have been in his arms, he put up his hand to hush her protest. Please, please, dear, don't. You have been in his arms, you flutter like a frightened bird at thought of my caressing you. Don't you see? Your actions decide against me. You have decided, though you may not know it. Your very flesh has decided. You can bear his arms. The thought of mine you cannot bear. She shook her head with slow resoluteness. And still I cannot make up my mind, she persisted. But you must. The present situation is intolerable. You must decide quickly, for Evan must go. You realize that. Or you must go. You both cannot continue on here. Take all the time in the world. Send Evan away, or suppose you go and visit Aunt Martha for a while. Being away from both of us might aid you to get somewhere. Perhaps it will be better to call off the hunting. I'll go alone, and you stay and talk it over with Evan, or come on along and talk it over with him as you ride. Whichever way, I won't be in till late. I may sleep out all night in one of the herders' cabins. When I come back, Evan must be gone. Whether or not you are gone with him will also have been decided. And if I should go, she queried. Dick shrugged his shoulders and stood up, glancing at his wristwatch. I have sent word to Blake to come earlier this morning, he explained, taking a step toward the door in invitation for her to go. At the door she paused and leaned toward him. Kiss me, Dick, she said, and afterward, this is not a love touch. Her voice had become suddenly husky. It's just in case I do decide to go. The secretary approached along the hall, but Paula lingered. Good morning, Mr. Blake, Dick greeted him. Sorry to rout you out so early. First of all, will you please telephone Mr. Agar and Mr. Pitts? I won't be able to see them this morning. Oh, and put the rest off till tomorrow, too. Make a point of getting Mr. Hanley. Tell him I approve of his plan for the Buckeye Spillway and to go right ahead. I will see Mr. Mendenhall, though, and Mr. Manson. Tell them 9:30. One thing, Dick, Paula said. Remember, I made him stay. It was not his fault or wish. I wouldn't let him go. You've bowled him over right enough, Dick smiled. I could not reconcile his staying on, under the circumstances, with what I knew of him. But with you not permitting him to go, and he as mad as a man has a right to be where you are concerned, I can understand. He's a whole lot better than a good sort. They don't make many like him. He will make you happy. She held up her hand. I don't know that I shall ever be happy again, Red Cloud, when I see what I have brought into your face. And I was so happy and contented all our dozen years. I can't forget it. That is why I have been unable to decide. But you are right. The time has come for me to solve the... She hesitated and could not utter the word triangle which he saw forming on her lips. The situation, her voice trailed away. We'll all go hunting. I'll talk with him as we ride, and I'll send him away, no matter what I do. I shouldn't be precipitate, Paul, Dick advised. You know I don't care a hang for morality except when it is useful, and in this case it is exceedingly useful. There may be children, please, he hushed her. And in such case even old scandal is not exactly good for them. Desertion takes too long. I'll arrange to give you the real statutory grounds, which will save a year in the divorce. If I so make up my mind, She smiled wanly. He nodded. But I may not make up my mind that way. I don't know it myself. Perhaps it's all a dream, and soon I shall wake up, and oh dear will come in and tell me how soundly and long I have slept. She turned away reluctantly, and paused suddenly when she had made half a dozen steps. Dick, she called, you have told me your heart, but not what's in your mind. Don't do anything foolish. Remember Denny Holbrook no hunting accident mind. He shook his head and twinkled his eyes in feigned amusement, and marveled to himself that her intuition should have so squarely hit the mark. And leave all this, he lied, with a gesture that embraced the ranch and all its projects. And that book on in-end breeding, and my first annual home sale of stock just ripe to come off. It would be preposterous, she agreed with brightening face. But, Dick, in this difficulty of making up my mind, please know that she paused for the phrase, then made a gesture in mimicry of his that included the big house and its treasures and said, all this does not influence me a particle. Truly not. As if I did not know it, he assured her, of all unmercenary women. Why, Dick, she interrupted him, fired by a new thought, if I loved Evan as madly as you think, you would mean so little that I'd be content if it were the only way out for you to have a hunting accident. But you see, I don't. Anyway, there's a brass tack for you to ponder. She made another reluctant step away, then called back in a whisper, her face over her shoulder. Red Cloud, I'm dreadfully sorry, and through it all I'm so glad that you do still love me. Before Blake returned, Dick found time to study his face in the glass. Printed there was the expression that had startled his company the preceding evening. It had come to stay. Oh, well, was his thought, one cannot chew his heart between his teeth without leaving some sign of it. He strolled out on the sleeping porch and looked at Paula's picture under the barometers. He turned it to the wall and sat on the bed and regarded the blankness for a space. Then he turned it back again. Poor little kid, he murmured, having a hard time of it just waking up at this late day. But as he continued to gaze, abruptly there leaped before his eyes the vision of her in the moonlight, clinging to Graham and drawing his lips down to hers. Dick got up quickly, with a shake of head to shake the vision from his eyes. By 9:30 his correspondence was finished, and his desk cleaned save for certain data to be used in his talks with his Shorthorn and Shire managers. He was over at the window and waving a smiling farewell to Lute and Ernestine in the limousine as Mendenhall entered. And to him, and to Manson next, Dick managed, in casual talk, to impress much of his bigger breeding plans. We've got to keep an eagle eye on the bullget of King Polo, he told Manson. There's all the promise in the world for a greater than he from Bleak House Fawn, or Alberta Maid, or Moravia's Nellie Signal. We missed it this year so far, but next year, or the year after, soon or late, King Polo is going to be responsible for a real humdinger of winter. And as with Manson, with much more talk, so with Mendenhall, Dick succeeded in emphasizing the far application of his breeding theories. With their departure, he got Joy on the house phone and told him to take Graham to the gun room to choose a rifle and any needed gear. At 11, he did not know that Paula had come up the secret stairway from the library and was standing behind the shelves of books listening. She had intended coming in, but had been deterred by the sound of his voice. She could hear him talking over the telephone to Hanley about the spillway of the Buckeye Dam. And by the way, Dick's voice went on, you've been over the reports on the big Miramar? Very good, discount them. I disagree with them flatly. The water is there. I haven't a doubt we'll find a fairly shallow artesian supply. Send up the boring outfit at once and start prospecting. The soil's ungodly rich, and if we don't make that dry hole 10 times as valuable in the next 5 years. Paula sighed and turned back down the spiral to the library. Red Cloud the incorrigible, always planting his acorns was her thought. There he was, with his love world crashing around him, calmly considering dams and well borings so that he might, in the years to come, plant more acorns. Nor was Dick ever to know that Paula had come so near to him with her need and gone away. Again, not aimlessly, but to run through for the last time the notes of the scribble pad by his bed, he was out on his sleeping porch. His house was in order. There was nothing left but to sign up the morning's dictation, answer several telegrams, then would come lunch and the hunting in the Sycamore Hills. Oh, he would do it well. The outlaw would bear the blame, and he would have an eyewitness, either Frolig or Martinez. but not both of them. One pair of eyes would be enough to satisfy when the martingale parted, and the mare reared and toppled backward upon him into the brush. And from that screen of brush, swiftly linking accident to catastrophe, the witness would hear the rifle go off. Martinez was more emotional than the sculptor and would therefore make a more satisfactory witness, Dick decided. Him would he maneuver to have with him in the narrow trail when the outlaw should be made the scapegoat. Martinez was no horseman. All the better. It would be well, Dick judged, to make the outlaw act up in real devilishness for a minute or two before the culmination. It would give verisimilitude. Also, it would excite Martinez's horse, and therefore, excite Martinez so that he would not see occurrences too clearly. He clenched his hands with sudden hurt. The little lady was mad. She must be mad. On no other ground could he understand such arrant cruelty, listening to her voice and Graham's from the open windows of the music room as they sang together the Gypsy Trail. Nor did he unclench his hands during all the time they sang. And they sang the mad, reckless song clear through to its mad, reckless end. And he continued to stand, listening to her laugh herself merrily away from Graham and on across the house to her wing, from the porches of which she continued to laugh as she teased and chided Oh Dear for fancied derelictions. From far off came the dim but unmistakable trumpeting of Mountain Lad. King Polo asserted his lordly self, and the harems of mares and heifers sent back their answering calls. Dick listened to all the whinnying and nickering and bawling of sex, and sighed aloud. Well, the land is better for my having been. It is a good thought to take to bed. Chapter 31. A ring of his bed phone made Dick sit on the bed to take up the receiver. As he listened, he looked out across the patio to Paula's porches. Bonbright was explaining that it was a call from Chauncey Bishop, who was at El Dorado in a machine. Chauncey Bishop, editor and owner of the San Francisco Dispatch, was sufficiently important a person, in Bonbright's mind, as well as old friend of Dick's, to be connected directly to him. You can get here for lunch, Dick told the newspaper owner. And say, suppose you put up for the night. Never mind your special writers. We're going hunting mountain lions this afternoon, and there's sure to be a kill. Got them located. Who? What's she write? What of it? She can stick around the ranch and get half a dozen columns out of any of half a dozen subjects, while the writer chap can get the dope on lion hunting. Sure. I'll put him on a horse a child can ride. The more the merrier, especially newspaper chaps. Dick grinned to himself, and grandfather Jonathan Forrest would have nothing on him when it came to pulling off a successful finish. But how could Paula have been so wantonly cruel as to sing the Gypsy Trail so immediately afterward? Dick asked himself, as, receiver near to ear, he could distantly hear Chauncey Bishop persuading his writer man to the hunting. All right then, come a-running, Dick told Bishop in conclusion. I'm giving orders now for the horses, and you can have that bay you rode last time. Scarcely had he hung up when the bell rang again. This time it was Paula. Red Cloud, dear Red Cloud, she said, your reasoning is all wrong. I think I love you best. I am just about making up my mind, and it's for you. And now, just to help me to be sure, tell me what you told me a little while ago. You know, I love the woman, the one woman. After a dozen years of possession, I love her quite madly, oh, so sweetly madly. Say it to me, Red Cloud. I do truly love the woman, the one woman, Dick repeated. After a dozen years of possession, I do love her quite madly, oh, so sweetly madly. There was a pause when he had finished, which, waiting, he did not dare to break. There is one little thing I almost forgot to tell you, she said, very softly, very slowly, very clearly. I do love you. I have never loved you so much as right now. After our dozen years, you've bowled me over at last, and I was bowled over from the beginning, although I did not know it. I have made up my mind now, once and for all. She hung up abruptly. With the thought that he knew how a man felt receiving a reprieve at the 11th hour, Dick sat on, thinking, forgetful that he had not hooked the receiver, until Bonbright came in from the secretary's room to remind him. It was from Mr. Bishop, Bonbright explained. Sprung an axle. I took the liberty of sending one of our machines to bring them in. And see what our men can do with repairing theirs, Dick nodded. Alone again, he got up and stretched, walked absently the length of the room and back. Well, Martinez, old man, he addressed the empty air. This afternoon you'll be defrauded out of as fine a histrionic stunt as you will never know you've missed. He pressed the switch for Paula's telephone and rang her up. Oh dear answered, and quickly brought her mistress. I've a little song I want to sing to you, Paul, he said, then chanted the old Negro spiritual. For itself, for itself, for itself, for itself, every soul got to confess for itself. And I want you to tell me again, for yourself, what you just told me. Her laughter came in a merry gurgle that delighted him. Red Cloud, I do love you, she said. My mind is made up. I shall never have any man but you in all this world. Now be good and let me dress. I'll have to rush for lunch as it is. May I come over for a moment? He begged. Not yet, eager one, in 10 minutes. Let me finish with Oh dear first, then I'll be all ready for the hunt. I'm putting on my Robin Hood outfit, you know, the greens and russets and the long feather, and I'm taking my 30-30. It's heavy enough for mountain lions. You've made me very happy, Dick continued. And you're making me late. Ring off, Red Cloud, I love you more this minute. He heard her hang up, and was surprised, the next moment, that somehow he was reluctant to yield to the happiness that he had claimed was his. Rather, did it seem that he could still hear her voice and Graham's recklessly singing the gypsy trail. Had she been playing with Graham, or had she been playing with him? Such conduct for her was unprecedented and incomprehensible. As he groped for a solution, he saw her again in the moonlight, clinging to Graham with upturned lips, drawing Graham's lips down to hers. Dick shook his head in bafflement and glanced at his watch. At any rate, in less than 10 minutes, he would hold her in his arms and know. So tedious was the brief space of time that he strolled slowly on the way, pausing to light a cigarette, throwing it away with the first inhalation, pausing again to listen to the busy click of typewriters from the secretary's room. With still 2 minutes to spare, and knowing that 1 minute would take him to the door without a knob, he stopped in the patio and gazed at the wild canaries bathing in the fountain. When they startled into the air, a cloud of fluttering gold and crystal droppings in the sunshine, Dick startled. The report of the rifle had come from Paula's wing above, and he identified it as her 30-30 as he dashed across the patio. She beat me to it, was his next thought, and what had been incomprehensible the moment before was as sharply definite as the roar of her rifle. And across the patio, up the stairs, through the door left wide flung behind him, continued to pulse in his brain. She beat me to it. She beat me to it. She lay, crumpled and quivering, in hunting costume complete, save for the pair of tiny bronze spurs held over her in anguished impotence by the frightened maid. His examination was quick. Paula breathed, although she was unconscious. From front to back on the left side, the bullet had torn through. His next spring was to the telephone, and as he waited the delay of connecting through the house central, he prayed that Hennessy would be at the stallion barn. A stable boy answered, and, while he ran to fetch the veterinary, Dick ordered Oh Joy to stay by the switches and to send Oh My to him at once. From the tail of his eye, he saw Graham rush into the room and on to Paula. Hennessy, Dick commanded. Come on the jump. Bring the needful for first aid. It's a rifle shot through the lungs or heart or both. Come right to Mrs. Forrest's rooms. Now jump. Don't touch her, he said sharply to Graham. It might make it worse, start a worse hemorrhage. Next he was back at Oh Joy. Start Callahan with the racing car for El Dorado. Tell him he'll meet Dr. Robinson on the way, and that he is to bring Dr. Robinson back with him on the jump. Tell him to jump like the devil was after him. Tell him Mrs. Forrest is hurt, and that if he makes time, he'll save her life. Receiver to ear, he turned to look at Paula. Graham, bending over her but not touching her, met his eyes. Forrest, he began, if you have done. But Dick hushed him with a warning glance directed toward Oh Dear, who still held the bronze spurs in speechless helplessness. It can be discussed later, Dick said shortly, as he turned his mouth to the transmitter. Dr. Robinson? Good. Mrs. Forrest has a rifle shot through lungs or heart or maybe both. Callahan is on his way to meet you in the racing car. Keep coming as fast as God'll let you till you meet Callahan. Goodbye. Back to Paula, Graham stepped aside as Dick, on his knees, bent over her. His examination was brief. He looked up at Graham with a shake of the head and said, It's too ticklish to fool with. He turned to Oh Dear. Put down those spurs and bring pillows. Evan, lend a hand on the other side and lift gently and steadily, Oh Dear. Shove that pillow under easy, easy. He looked up and saw Oh My standing silently, awaiting orders. Get Mr. Bonbright to relieve O'Joy at the switches, Dick commanded. Tell O'Joy to stand near to Mr. Bonbright to rush orders. Tell O'Joy to have all the house boys around him to rush the orders. As soon as Saunders comes back with Mr. Bishop's crowd, tell O'Joy to start him out on the jump to El Dorado to look for Callahan in case Callahan has a smash-up. Tell O'Joy to get hold of Mr. Manson and Mr. Pitts or any two of the managers who have machines and have them, with their machines, waiting here at the house. Tell O'Joy to take care of Mr. Bishop's crowd as usual. And you come back here where I can call you. Dick turned to Oh dear. Now tell me how it happened. Oh dear shook her head and wrung her hands. Where were you when the rifle went off? The Chinese girl swallowed and pointed toward the wardrobe room. Go on, talk, Dick commanded harshly. Mrs. Forrest tell me to get spurs, I forget before, I go quick. I hear gun, I come back quick, I run. She pointed to Paula to show what she had found. But the gun, Dick asked. Some trouble, maybe gun no work. Maybe 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, Mrs. Forrest try make gun work. Was she trying to make the gun work when you went for the spurs? Oh dear nodded. Before that I say maybe O'Joy can fix gun. Mrs. Forrest say never mind. She say you can fix. She put gun down, then she try once more fix gun, then she tell me get spurs. Then, gun go off. Hennessy's arrival shut off further interrogation. His examination was scarcely less brief than Dick's. He looked up with a shake of the head. Nothing I can dare tackle, Mr. Forrest. The hemorrhage has eased of itself, though it must be gathering inside. You've sent for a doctor. Robinson, I caught him in his office. He's young, a good surgeon, Dick explained to Graham. He's nervy and daring, and I'd trust him in this farther than some of the old ones with reputations. What do you think, Mr. Hennessy? What chance has she? Looks pretty bad, though I'm no judge, being only a horse doctor. Robinson'll know. Nothing to do but wait. Dick nodded and walked out on Paula's sleeping porch to listen for the exhaust of the racing machine Callahan drove. He heard the ranch limousine arrive leisurely and swiftly depart. Graham came out on the porch to him. I want to apologize, Forrest, he said. I was rather off for the moment. I found you here, and I thought you were here when it happened. It must have been an accident. Poor little kid, Dick agreed. And she so prided herself on never being careless with guns. I've looked at the rifle, Graham said, but I couldn't find anything wrong with it. And that's how it happened. Whatever was wrong got right, that's how it went off. And while Dick talked, building the fabric of the lie so that even Graham should be fooled, to himself he was understanding how well Paula had played the trick. That last singing of the gypsy trail had been her farewell to Graham, and at the same time had provided against any suspicion on his part of what she had intended directly to do. It had been the same with him. She had had her farewell with him, and, the last thing, over the telephone, had assured him that she would never have any man but him in all the world. He walked away from Graham to the far end of the porch. She had the grit, he muttered to himself with quivering lips. Poor kid, she couldn't decide between the two, and so she solved it this way. The noise of the racing machine drew him and Graham together, and together they entered the room to wait for the doctor. Graham betrayed unrest, reluctant to go, yet feeling that he must. Please stay on, Evan, Dick told him. She liked you much, and if she does open her eyes, she'll be glad to see you. Dick and Graham stood apart from Paula while Dr. Robinson made his examination. When he arose with an air of finality, Dick looked his question. Robinson shook his head. Nothing to be done, he said. It is a matter of hours, maybe of minutes. He hesitated, studying Dick's face for a moment. I can ease her off if you say the word. She might possibly recover consciousness and suffer for a space. Dick took a turn down the room and back, and when he spoke it was to Graham. Why not let her live again, brief as the time may be? The pain is immaterial. It will have its inevitable quick anodyne. It is what I would wish, what you would wish. She loved life, every moment of it. Why should we deny her any of the little left her? Graham bent his head in agreement, and Dick turned to the doctor. Perhaps you can stir her, stimulate her, to a return of consciousness. If you can, do so. And if the pain proves too severe, then you can ease her. When her eyes fluttered open, Dick nodded Graham up beside him. At first bewilderment was all she betrayed, then her eyes focused first on Dick's face, then on Graham's, and with recognition, her lips parted in a pitiful smile. I thought at first that I was dead, she said. But quickly another thought was in her mind, and Dick divined it in her eyes as they searched him. The question was if he knew it was no accident. He gave no sign. She had planned it so, and she must pass believing it so. I was wrong, she said. She spoke slowly, faintly, in evident pain, with a pause for strength of utterance between each word. I was always so cocksure I'd never have an accident, and look what I've gone and done. It's a darn shame, Dick said sympathetically. What was it, a jam? She nodded, and again her lips parted in the pitiful brave smile as she said whimsically, Oh, Dick, go call the neighbors in and show them what little Paula's din. How serious is it? She asked. Be honest, Red Cloud, you know me, she added, after the briefest of pauses in which Dick had not replied. He shook his head. How long? She queried. Not long, came his answer. You can ease off any time. You mean? She glanced aside curiously at the doctor and back to Dick, who nodded. It's only what I should have expected from you, Red Cloud, she murmured gratefully. But is Dr. Robinson game for it? The doctor stepped around so that she could see him and nodded. Thank you, doctor, and remember, I am to say when. Is there much pain? Dick queried. Her eyes were wide and brave and dreadful, and her lips quivered for the moment ere she replied, Not much, but dreadful, quite dreadful. I won't care to stand it very long. I'll say when. Once more the smile on her lips announced a whimsy. Life is queer, most queer, isn't it? And do you know, I want to go out with love songs in my ears. You first, Evan, sing the Gypsy Trail. Why, I was singing it with you less than an hour ago. Think of it. Do, Evan, please. Graham looked to Dick for permission, and Dick gave it with his eyes. Oh, and sing it robustly, gladly, madly, just as a womaning gypsy man should sing it, she urged. And stand back there so, where I can see you. And while Graham sang the whole song through to its The heart of a man to the heart of a maid, light of my tents be fleet, morning waits at the end of the world, and the world is all at our feet. Oh my, immobile-faced, a statue, stood in the far doorway awaiting commands. Oh dear, grief-stricken, stood at her mistress's head, no longer wringing her hands, but holding them so tightly clasped that the fingertips and nails showed white. To the rear, at Paula's dressing table, Dr. Robinson noiselessly dissolved in a glass the anodyne pellets and filled his hypodermic. When Graham had finished, Paula thanked him with her eyes, closed them, and lay still for a space. And now, Red Cloud, she said when next she opened them, the song of AI Cut and of the Dew Woman, the Lush Woman. Stand where Evan did so that I can see you well. And Dick chanted, I am AI Cut, the first man of the Nishanam. AI Cut is the short for Adam, and my father and my mother were the coyote and the moon, and this is Yodadawai, my wife. Yodadawai is the short for Eve. She is the first woman of the Nishanam. Me, I am AI Cut. This is my dew of women. This is my honeydew of women. Her father and her mother were the Sierra Dawn and the summer east wind of the mountains. Together they conspired, and from the air and earth they sweated all sweetness till in a mist of their own, love the leaves of the chaparral and the manzanita were dewed with the honeydew. Yodadawai is my honeydew woman. Hear me, I am AI Cut. Yodadawai is my quail woman, my dear woman, my lush woman of all soft rain and fat soil. She was born of the thin starlight and the brittle dawnlight in the morning of the world, and she is the one woman of all women to me. Again, with closed eyes, she lay silent for a while. Once she attempted to draw a deeper breath, which caused her to cough slightly several times. Try not to cough, Dick said. They could see her brows contract with the effort of will to control the irritating tickle that might precipitate a paroxysm. Oh dear, come around where I can see you, she said, when she opened her eyes. The Chinese girl obeyed, moving blindly, so that Robinson, with a hand on her arm, was compelled to guide her. Goodbye, oh dear, you've been very good to me always, and sometimes, maybe, I have not been good to you. I am sorry. Remember, Mr. Forrest will always be your father and your mother, and all my jade is yours. She closed her eyes, in token that the brief audience was over. Again she was vexed by the tickling cough that threatened to grow more pronounced. I am ready, Dick, she said faintly, still with closed eyes. I want to make my sleepy, sleepy noise. Is the doctor ready? Come closer. Hold my hand like you did before in the little death." She turned her eyes to Graham, and Dick did not look, for he knew love was in that last look of hers, as he knew it would be when she looked into his eyes at the last. "Once," she explained to Graham, "I had to go on the table, and I made Dick go with me into the anesthetic chamber and hold my hand until I went under. You remember, Henley called it the drunken dark, the little death in life. It was very easy." In the silence she continued her look, then turned her face and eyes back to Dick, who knelt close to her, holding her hand. With a pressure of her fingers on his and a beckoning of her eyes, she drew his ear down to her lips. "Red Cloud," she whispered, "I love you best, and I am proud I belonged to you for such a long, long time." Still closer, she drew him with the pressure of her fingers. "I'm sorry there were no babies, Red Cloud." With the relaxing of her fingers, she eased him from her so that she could look from one to the other. "Two bonny, bonny men, goodbye, bonny men, goodbye, Red Cloud." In the pause, they waited, while the doctor bared her arm for the needle. "Sleepy, sleepy," she twittered in mimicry of drowsy birds. "I am ready, doctor. Stretch the skin tight first. You know I don't like to be hurt. Hold me tight, Dick." Robinson, receiving the eye permission from Dick, easily and quickly thrust the needle through the stretched skin, with steady hand sank the piston home, and with the ball of the finger soothingly rubbed the morphine into circulation. "Sleepy, sleepy, booful sleepy," she murmured drowsily after a time. Semi-consciously, she half-turned on her side, curved her free arm on the pillow and nestled her head on it, and drew her body up in nestling curves in the way Dick knew she loved to sleep. After a long time, she sighed faintly, and began so easily to go that she was gone before they guessed. From without, the twittering of the canaries bathing in the fountain penetrated the silence of the room, and from afar came the trumpeting of Mountain Lad and the silver whinny of the Fotherington Princess. The end. End of project Gutenberg's The Little Lady of the Big House by Jack London.